I had this sermon prepared, a lesson from Nitzavim, but I forgot to look at the calendar and I didn't realize that today is Purim. It just wasn't on my calendar. Of course, it wasn't Purim until it became Purim. Now, it's not Purim, but think about it. Remember Pesach? You ever hear of Pesach Sheni? Right. Right. It's a holiday that occurs after the first Pesach. Now, why do we have that Pesach Sheni? Because there were times when people, due to their being impure, they were tameh, they couldn't go to the temple and offer the Passover sacrifice, which in biblical times, that's how you observe Passover. Because they missed that opportunity, the Torah says, okay, you get a second chance. Pesach didn't work for you this year, but you can't miss Pesach. So the second time, you'll do it another time, when you're ready. Well, Purim this year was not a great celebration. Now, we did Purim, but Purim was not something that we could really get into because it was in the midst of a horrible period of time during the war without any resolution or any even view of a possible resolution. So I think what we have yesterday, leading into is Purim Sheni. This will be our second opportunity to enjoy the Purim that we didn't enjoy to its fullest extent in this difficult year of war. So I want to look at the book of Esther and see what we can learn for it as a parallel to what we've experienced with the assassination of Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. First, I want to build on what Rabbi Royce, when he reminded us of this teaching about Nitzavim and Omeid. Omeid is, I'm here, but maybe tomorrow I could be over here, and I can stand over here. But Nitzavim is, I'm here and I ain't moving. Okay? The lesson that Israel had to teach, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, was Israel is not omedet, Khan. Israel is not just present in the land of Israel as a temporary thing. That's how they look at it. Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran look at it. You're just there. You're omedet. You're standing there, but you're not going to stand there permanently. And Israel's message is, Atem Nitzavim. No. We're not standing. We are fixed here. We are immovable and unshakable. That's the message that was sent yesterday. So let's take a look at something in the book of Purim, in the book of Esther. There's many parallels. There's one thing that isn't parallel. Esther's dealing with a diaspora Jewish community, and we're dealing with a community that is embedded, lives, and is sovereign in our homeland. But we still have the same enemies. In fact, where does Purim take place? Persia. Persia's Iran, right? And Haman is Nasrallah, and Sinwar, and the Ayatollah. So at the end of chapter 8, after Haman is hung, right? And now the Jewish people are secure, but not completely secure, because we still have chapter 9. And in chapter 8, it says the following: La Yehudim hayata ora v'simcha v'sason. We sing that in Havdalah. To the Jews, there was light, gladness, happiness, and honor. And then in Havdalah we say, Kain ti'alanu. So it should happen to us as well. This was after, of course, Haman was hung. Then it says there should be a feast and a holiday to celebrate that. Some people say, what, you're celebrating the death of Haman? Well, we're celebrating the end of the threat of Haman. It isn't the death of Haman, it's the end of his threat to the Jewish people. And many of the people of the land professed to be Jews, for the fear of the Jews had fallen upon them. The fear of the Jews had fallen upon them after Mordechai and Esther were successful. Translate the word fear into military terms or political terms, and it's called deterrence. You deter people because they're afraid of you. They know that the consequences to their actions will be so dramatic that it wouldn't be worth what they did. We lost that deterrence, and that's Israel's most important military asset, besides obviously its weaponry and its genius of its army and its air force and its navy, its all the soldiers. Israel lost the deterrence on October 7th. Israel appeared to be vulnerable. And that lack of deterrence continued right up till a few days ago, because Hezbollah had successfully forced 80 to 100,000 Israelis out of their homes in the north. And Israel's response was not strong enough to reverse that fact. So now it appeared to Hezbollah that they could in fact control northern Israel. And it appeared to Hamas that they could inflict tremendous harm on Israel and resist the Israeli counteroffensive. That's how it all looked, and it all changed in the last few days. Because now there is a sense of deterrence. There is a sense of fear. Who wants to be the one who replaces Nasrallah? Right? Talking about a target on his back. Who wants to be the leader of the Houthis and leave a tunnel? Because they know if Israel can kill Nasrallah in the middle of Beirut, they can kill any Houthi rebels wherever they might be. So this deterrence has been restored. Deterrence is extremely important because the entire October 7th happening was because the Saudis were about to sign a deal with the Israelis. Why would the Saudis ever enter a deal with Israelis? It's not like they have to borrow money from the Israelis, right? Because the Israelis were the only ones they could trust to deter Iran. The enemy, right? The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Right. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Israel was the enemy of Iran, so Saudi said, you're less of an enemy than Iran, we need you. And the deal was very, very close. It would have been the next step in the Abraham Accords, and that's why the October 7th was launched, to kill that deal. And it's been on the sidelines ever since because Israel didn't appear after October 7th to be a country that could deter Iran. It looked like it was a country on the defense. And that is not what Saudis need. That's not what the UAE needs. They need a country that can deter Iran with their assistance, but primarily with the military might and the intelligence of the Israeli armed forces. That has all been restored. The deterrence is there. The enemy is on its heels. It's without leadership. It's in complete confusion. And we'll watch as it plays out. And Israel is not going to stop pressing in Lebanon until Hezbollah is sidelined. In chapter 9, it's a strange chapter. Because remember, there was an edict saying that those in the land of Persia, on this particular date in the month of Adar, would be able to attack and kill all the Jews and take their property, right? That was supposed to happen, except Haman is dead now. Mordechai and Esther are the good friends of the king and has their favor. And the king issues an edict that says, not that you can't do it. It says that now the Jews can defend themselves on that day. And all of a sudden, a lot of people start to identify with the Jews because now they fear them. There's a deterrence. They want to be on the side of the winner. And I think we will see as this unfolds that there's going to be a shift in some of the attitudes in which groups will start to want to side with Israel because she will be the winner. We also, this was another news flash, we remember that in Syria, Assad conducted a civil war that ended up in 500,000 dead Syrians, something the media kind of missed, right? 500,000 dead Syrians, one of the worst civil wars of the modern period. Who helped Assad regain his foothold and control that part of Syria that he now controls? Hezbollah did. Nasrallah did. So yesterday, when the report came in, there were Syrians dancing in the street and passing out candy because Nasrallah was dead. We're used to Syrians dancing in the streets and celebrating when a 9/11 happens. That's what we're used to, when an October 7th happens. But suddenly they're dancing in the streets because the Israelis took out their enemy. They're going to start to see Israel as a possible ally. Laurie and I were talking about the Lebanese. The Lebanese we had such great relationships with Lebanon for many times, back to biblical times. Do you know who built the temple? Solomon's temple? You think he let Jews build it? He wanted it to stand for a long time. He turned to the Lebanese because they were the builders, the cedars of Lebanon, the greatest, most powerful instrument of construction, the wood of Lebanon. He bought it and he brought in all the people and said, you know how to do this better than we can. Okay, we'll finance it, you build it. And that's what happened. And we had wonderful relations with Lebanon for a long period of time. And Beirut was a jewel, right? A wealthy, beautiful city. And then came Nasrallah and Hezbollah and hijacked the country. The Lebanese may not be courageous enough right now to go out in the streets and dance and pass out candy, but you can be sure that there's a very large population in Lebanon is cheering Israel on and would like to see peaceful relations so that country can grow and thrive again. And it'll be the same thing in Gaza. There is no Hamas army anymore. There's now a Hamas insurrection, right? There's an insurgency like we saw in Iraq, but there's no army per se. And we don't even know how many leaders they have that are still alive. So this was what we call a turning point. And what happened in the book of Esther? They did attack the Jews. This is very important because what happened, it's not over. The war is not over, right? When we read the book of Esther, when Haman dies, you think the book's over. Okay, let's go eat. We killed Haman, it's over. No, it isn't. We still got 2 chapters left. Actually, two chapters in small number 10 chapter. Why? Because the real anti-Semites, the one who can't give it up even when they're losing, even when they know they're going to lose, they attack anyway. And that's what happens in the book. Remember, they attacked the Jews on that day. But what happens? The Jews rise up, defend themselves successfully, and they are joined by others who want to gain favor of the king by saying, we helped the Jews on this day. And your wife is Jewish, and your viceroy is Jewish, so you should like us to gain favor of the king. And there will be those who will now support Israel in order to gain favor with the ones they know will be victorious. The greatest deterrence is the knowledge of the other side that they can't win and the price they will pay. You may not remember, but a while back in the Lebanese war that began when they came over and they killed and kidnapped a few Israeli soldiers, and then we launched an invasion. After the invasion, Nasrallah went into the tunnels, didn't appear for years. We didn't see him for years, only on video. And this was his famous line: if I knew then how Israel was going to react, I would have never crossed the border and killed the soldiers and kidnapped them. Because the destruction in Lebanon was so great that he realized he had made a mistake. October 7th convinced him that Israel was now vulnerable and he could go back to shooting missiles into northern Israel without paying a big price. Well, he just paid the ultimate price as Hezbollah is continued to be pounded each day. So it's not over. It wasn't over when Haman was hung. There's still people determined, even at the cost of their own lives, to attack Israel and try and destroy it. Just like it was in the book of Esther. But they were defeated, and we were joined by many, many friends who realized that our cause was not only just, but in the case of opposing Iran, it's their cause as well. The Persians who came out in the book of Esther and defended the Jews that day and fought with us, a day before when Haman was still alive, they were ready to kill us. What changed them? Deterrence, fear, and realizing they were on the wrong side. They had to change sides. And that will happen with many people who are not ideologues and groups that are not ideological. They're just going to go to the side that's going to benefit them in the end. But we mustn't take too big of a relief and think it's over. We must realize that just like in the book of Esther, there will be those who will continue the fight, continue to shoot missiles, continue their attempt to destroy Israel. But now they know, and the Saudis know, and the Iranians know, that it's not possible. It can't be done. Now, how did Esther and Mordechai, especially Esther, why was she victorious? She didn't have an army, right? She outsmarted Haman. She outsmarted all of them. She made a plan that turned Ahasuerus into the friend of the Jews and made Haman look like he was the enemy of Ahasuerus. She did it by being smarter. Israel, as we well know, is outnumbered significantly by the armies of her enemies. Israel is surrounded, but it is very clear they learned the lesson from Esther and Mordechai. The way you win is, number one, you need friends. Military equipment comes from America. It's the greatest in the world. And you need to outsmart them because they just got a lot more people than you do. And that's exactly what we've seen in the last few weeks. The beepers, the walkie-talkies, and now intelligence that we may not know for a long, long time, if ever. How did they not only know that he was there, but that he had left the bunker underneath and come up to the ground floor to greet his guests? How could they have possibly known it at that moment? And that's when they struck. So the book of Esther is a great guide to understanding what's transpiring now. And it says here, in the prayer that we recite, Al Hanisim, in the time of Mordechai and Esther, in the Persian, Iranian capital of Shushan, evil Haman rose up and plotted to destroy, to kill, to annihilate the entire Jewish people. That's the goal. They're not trying to gain land from Israel. Right? It's not like Hezbollah was fighting to get the Golan Heights back and Hamas was fighting to get more land outside Gaza. They were fighting to destroy and annihilate the entire Jewish population and the state of Israel. Young and old, women and infants, that's who they attacked in Gaza. They attacked the women, the children, the elderly. But you, O Lord, in your great mercy, foiled his plot, upset his plans, visited upon him what he deserved, and we were victorious. So it's a Purim Sheni. It's another Purim. It will go down in Jewish history as a day to celebrate. People won't even remember his name, Nasrallah, but to celebrate that this was the beginning of the end of the threat for a very long time to come, for the way into the future, and therefore it is a day like Purim for the miracles, the deliverance, the victories, the triumphs, and the battles you fought for our ancestors in those days. And the real Hebrew is not at that time. It's not by Yamim Haim Bazman Hazeh. It's correctly by Yamim Haim U Bazman Hazeh. That which you did then and that which you have done in our day as well. So we pray for the safety of our soldiers, and someday somebody will write a book about the Israeli Air Force, which saved the Jewish state and restored security to the people of Israel. As we enter the new year, I think we can enter with concern because they're still going to attack as they did in chapter 8 and 9 in the book of Esther, but we can enter the new year knowing that victory is at hand and that it will not be a very long time before a peace will descend upon Israel that will be long-lasting, and Israel will be able to return to her normalcy, and the world will be able to marvel not at Israel, how she has great intelligence and incredible weaponry and the skill of the Air Force, but chips, phones, no beepers, they're never going to buy a beeper from us. Medicine, science will continue to contribute to the world great things, because they will understand their attempt to stop us will be foiled each and every time. Shabbat Shalom.